Morning.
Hey, what's
Hey,
up?
Morning.
I was waiting for you to say something.
Oh,
Hi.
I thought we had like 15 seconds still.
No, we're there.
I know. You know why?
We're live.
Because I was looking on the line,
Oh,
and it's like
a little bit of a
15.
delay.
And I was like, wow, why did we go
Yeah,
early?
when you said 30 seconds, I was like, no, we have
No, it's
like
like
15 seconds.
well, I was looking, I was checking to make sure we were live on the internet. People could tune in, check out Theology Thursday.
So we know you're there.
Right.
Welcome to
behind
today's
us.
Oh, yeah.
Theology
Look at all those
Thursday.
people in.
Look at that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see that right there?
Uh-huh.
What is that?
That's,
I don't know.
That's our...
Like what? Wait, what's this?
White shot.
Wait, what's this one? Oh,
What are you doing?
bald spots. I was pointing out bald spots.
That's
Thanks.
so helpful.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Tanner's with us this week. He's down there in the inn.
I'm right here.
There you are.
Right here.
Kyle, Scott, Craig. Theology Thursday hanging out on a sunny summer. It's the 18th. Can we just
beautiful
say
day.
summer yet?
It's summer.
It's summer. Great.
Sure.
Sunny summer day. I think the weather has turned.
We've
Yes.
This
We're
was our
past
breakthrough. The last 2 days are
Yesterday's
our breakthrough.
thunderstorm,
We're
that
done.
was
We're ready
it.
for summer.
We're on the summer trips. Anybody got summer plans, summer activities, summer things you're doing?
Yep, leaving Sunday afternoon to go camping for a week over to the west side. Get out of this 80-degree weather and go be in 65-degree weather. Wait a minute, what's wrong with that picture?
When you say the
It's
west
completely
side,
backwards.
you're talking, what are you talking about? Because I hear this a lot. No, I'm serious. I'm not even planning this.
Okay.
West side or the coast?
The west side of the state, not the coast.
not
the
the
coast is where
coast.
the ocean is.
The ocean.
Now, a lot of people on this side of the mountains refer to anything on that side of the mountains as the coast, but it's
Like
not.
Issaquah.
That's not true.
Issaquah is not the coast.
Issaquah's not the coast.
It's
like
the
I'm
west
going to
side.
the coast. Where'd you go? Bellevue. Bellevue's not on the coast.
Yeah.
Oh, like downtown Seattle? That's the ocean. I get it, technically.
Yeah,
The
I mean
coast.
that's. I mean, if
That's
you're
the
on,
coast?
if you're, is the peninsula not part of the coast? Then, if you're on the water, that's like coastline
I
of
don't
some
know
sort,
if
right?
that's really
If you've
the
been
coast,
in the
though.
waves on Puget Sound and then you go to like Long Beach and go, on some
Yeah.
waves, those are a lot different waves.
I
Yeah,
get
like
it,
that's
but
the coast.
technically, if we want to go by definition of
By
the
the
coastline,
ocean?
if I'm in
Yes.
the peninsula on the water, that's the coast
Yeah.
of Washington.
So
Correct.
I'll grant you that the
I just don't-
But
coastline-
I wouldn't say.
I lived there for 9 years.
Yeah.
I didn't live on the ocean, even though I literally for 2 years lived on the ocean. I wouldn't be like, oh, I lived on the coast. I lived on the ocean for 2 years.
wait, on the ocean.
Yeah, it's the Puget Sound, to your technical
On-
definition.
One of those
I'm just
floating
saying,
homes.
I
those
would
boat
never
homes.
say that, but technically, if we want to look at the definition of coast, if there's a line of the coast, that is the coast.
It is the coastline. I
Yeah.
just never was like, I'm going back to the coast.
Yeah. Well, the one that gets me is they're referring to Olympia or Chehalis or something on the west side.
Landlocked.
Yeah, completely landlocked. Oh, yeah, I'm going to the coast. No, you're going to a place on the west side that's not anywhere near salt water.
Yeah, I get you there.
Saltwater, not
But you
saltwater.
know-
I'm curious on this. How many people will go, Seattle is the coast or Seattle is not the coast?
Yeah, you can comment.
Put it in the
on,
comments, yeah.
Tanner,
comment-
where you stand on this hot topic?
When I think of coast, I'm from Oregon, so I think Long Beach. I think of Cannon Beach, Pacific City. Like coast is where there's the beach, the water, salt water,
the ocean.
and the ocean,
Yeah.
and like sandy beach. Like that's when I think of coast.
You don't
so
think
I wouldn't say like Seattle is coast.
downtown Seattle, you're like coast.
No,
Yeah.
I would just say it's on the water.
Yeah, I would never say that. I would never tell people, yeah, I'm going to the coast.
Oh, like
I'd go to Oregon coast. We used to go to the Oregon coast all the time. I'm going to the Oregon coast.
Lincoln City, go to the
Yeah,
Rock,
go
go
to
to
Fort Beach.
Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Going to the coast. I don't say that ever though. I mean, that's not part of my terminology. Like, we're just going to the coast.
Coasting it.
Go
Like,
to the west side.
yeah, I mean, maybe Oregon coast because you kind of refer to that, like you say, the whole
The whole
coastline.
Yeah.
But-
Anyways,
I
the
have
weather
a-
has turned summer
Hey, guys.
trips. We got distracted.
I've got a pretty good idea that most of the people
You're
listening
going-
right now or watching, they don't care what the coast is.
Sure.
Or that
Oh, this is an
No,
important
this is
thing.
a hot
But
topic.
you're
No,
going,
it's not a
you're
hot
going
topic.
camping on the coast. Tanner, you got any summer trips planned? Anything
Summer trips planned.
as this post-COVID world we're in?
Oh, I have no idea. I think
Post-COVID.
plans
You
of
like
like
how I
going
did
somewhere, not really. But I know a lot of my friends, they're going to be coming back from like Oregon or wherever, the west side, wherever they're from, and we'll be going
coast.
to some lakes. Not the coast, the west side. But they'll be coming back into town, and we'll go
Did
to like
a lot
the
of
lake, do some
Whitworth
boating.
students like bail when Whitworth shut
Yeah.
down? So a lot of your buddies' friends, they just were like, boop. see
They're
ya.
out, yeah.
So are people going to come back to
Think
this
so.
area? You don't know.
I don't know. Not
Right.
so yeah, that was the thing that was weird about COVID. Like, didn't get to say goodbye to a lot of people.
Wow.
They're like, oh yeah, I'm out.
See ya. College shut down.
Because the
we gone.
original plan for Whitworth was we'll go online for like a month and then we'll come back for live classes. So then people are like, oh yeah, I'll see you in a month.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we're shut down. I was like, cool. Never going to see
And
those
you're
friends
like,
again.
I graduated, so I will never see you.
Yeah.
Wish we could have said goodbye. Yeah.
So-
I'm just glad the weather has shifted. We're into summer, hot weather, like 80 degrees in the forecast. We literally, in our neighborhood, we've had so much rain. Two things. One, I have not turned on my sprinklers.
Yeah.
Me either.
Because it's not needed, right? Because my backyard has been flooded for days and weeks. And the second thing is we literally have a couple. It's a male and a female pair of ducks. And they live in our neighborhood. There's been so much water. One of our big grassy areas, it's a low spot and it gets water. But they live in there's about a foot of water in this little pond. We call it a pond because you'll see them in people's front yards because there's enough water in a swale that they'll be just like swimming around in their front yards. And they walk around the neighborhood. You'll see them on different blocks, walking the sidewalk. They've been in our neighborhood for like 6 weeks. I'm like,
Wow.
it is too
Fantastic.
wet.
That's fantastic.
We got to get to the hot weather. Anyways, summer
So we're
trips.
here.
We're here. We're
Hot
tripping.
weather.
We're tripping. Jesus is on a trip. We're in John chapter 4. Jesus is on a trip. He stopped for 2 days.
He is. It just sounded pretty funny.
just-
Yeah. He's on a trip.
On a trip.
he is actually on a trip on
It
his
was
way
not
to,
a trip to the
on
coast. It
to-
was an inland
no,
trip going
he's
from
going to
south to
Cana.
north.
Yeah, Cana of Galilee.
That's a large sea.
That's
It's
a
like
trip.
an ocean.
Oh
They
my
might have
gosh.
called that the coast. No,
No.
not it. Anyways,
I don't
he's
think
on a
so.
trip. He had this conversation with a lady. He stopped for 2 days, hung out with the people in the town. They all became believers because they saw the reality of who he is. And we ended on verse 42, chapter 4, verse 42, that they really saw that he was the Savior of the world. Who else were they going to turn to for life, for salvation, for healing, restoration, all the things they need in life? It was Jesus, and it became very clear to them after he'd spent 2 days with them, living with them, eating with them, teaching them. And so they resumed their trip. And so if you haven't tuned in with us on a Theology Thursday, we talk about life and summer and ducks and hot topics like the coast. And then we also talk about Jesus. And we've just been reading through John's account, his eyewitness account of living life with Jesus and his recording of it. And so we have this, after 2 days, he left Galilee, and Jesus and everybody, they went north, right? They left Samaria to Galilee, headed north.
Sure.
I look to you to help make sure I'm in a Bible reference correct
With the
position.
geography.
Yeah, I was
of
gonna say
it.
the more geography reference, not
let-
about theology, but
Let's
geography.
see. I've got
Hey,
a
it's
map.
a
in
Yeah,
the-
there's a map.
I
in
got
There's
a
the
map in
maps.
the back here.
I love a good map in the back.
Come on.
I think most Bibles
Keep
have
going.
the map in
Yes.
the back now, right?
So we have this encounter that's recorded for us. When Jesus arrived in Galilee, verse 45, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, which that's kind of interesting, for they'd also been there. So, I think it's just this momentum of Jesus' ministries picking up, the word's getting out. People are witnessing and experiencing things. It's one thing, we've talked about this before, I think, on the show here. Is it a show? Anyways,
Show.
on the
On
the
the
Theology Thursday.
Podcast
The old
kind of style video.
It's one thing just to know about Jesus, and it's another thing to experience who he is. And that's just true in life. It's one thing to know about something. Like Tanner, I can tell you what it's like to have kids. It's a whole nother thing to actually have your own kids, And so the people had been there at the Passover feast. What did Jesus do? What did he teach? What miracles had he done at the Passover feast for them to have come to this point of okay, we are welcoming you because you got something going on, man.
Yep.
You're not like everybody else.
Actually, both things were happening. Word was spreading, so there were more and more people knowing about Jesus, which was important. There was a buzz. They didn't have social media. Well, they did. It was word of mouth. It was people talking to people, and the word was spreading. But then on top of that, this other group was also growing. These are people that had heard about Jesus and now were having their own experiences with Jesus, and those lives were being transformed, and they were talking about that.
Yeah, and he makes the point that he references this an earlier story, even in verse 46, as he gets through Galilee, he comes to Cana. That's the place that he had done that miracle we talked about with the water into wine, right? So these are, John's referencing a specific instance that, hey, they didn't just hear about Jesus. They experienced firsthand the power and the miraculous nature of who Jesus was. This wasn't just some guy anymore.
Right.
This was and whether they knew it or not, this was the physical manifestation of, again, what John talked about in John 1, the light of the world. And some of them are beginning to understand that. Some of them are getting pieces of that and having this experience that, okay, this guy's the real deal, or he's something more than just everybody else.
Right. Yeah, Jesus always had like a 3 or maybe even more if you wanted to break it down further, but like groups of people that were always with him, following him, where you had the core of his disciples, the apostles, the larger group of people who were believers and followers, and then you always had some sort of crowd that was a mixed bag of people who were believers, that were just happened to be in the area he was in, people who were critics trying to challenge him, people who were just curious, and they would show up, they're like, I heard, but I got to come see for myself.
Right.
It's like one thing to hear about a great restaurant from somebody, and then you go there and you're like, dude, the smoked brisket nachos were legit. Like, why didn't you tell me about that a long time ago? Like, I didn't know you didn't know.
And this entourage that you're referring to that was almost always present when Jesus was going from place to place also included a number of key women. They continue to be referenced throughout the Gospels, and then we get to the time after Jesus has been placed in the tomb. Who were some of the first people to show up at the tomb to see whether he was there or not? Were the women that were part of that entourage, faithful followers of his. And yeah, very influential.
Yeah, when you go with the resurrected Jesus, it's always easier for me to sit on this side of the resurrection, because like he said for days and probably even years clearly to his followers, and you talk about like the guys, right? He said, Peter, here's how it's going to go down. I'm going to die. You count to 3. I'm coming back. He goes, okay. And they didn't believe him.
No, in fact, he rebuked Jesus on one occasion. He said, no, that can't happen.
Right. And they weren't standing at the tomb just waiting, going, yep, and 1, 2, 3, here he comes.
No.
Like where were they with their, and we're like, oh, so obvious. Look, you can just read right here. He said it when you're having dinner together.
That's the old hindsight principle, right?
Yeah, but
it's a lot easier to see in hindsight.
Right? Faith is being certain of things unseen. As
before the fact.
Before the fact that we sit here today, like evidence of God. I'm certain that God exists because of things, I can kind of see, but I have never seen God. No one has ever seen God. And so Jesus showed up on earth in order for us to like get a better understanding of God in a bod, like walking around, talking with people, teaching people, healing people. And so he has this encounter, right, as he's in Galilee. And this is like a point we can just kind of stick on for a bit. Let's start in verse 46, halfway through. And there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. When this man heard that Jesus has arrived in Galilee from Judea, so again, one of those people who had heard of Jesus probably, like you were pointing out, was curious, had some sort of level of faith, had heard stories, go, this guy does miracles. The water and the wine thing, oh yeah, you heard about that? That's nothing. Like, let me tell you of all the other stuff he did at the Passover feast, as he's been traveling, whatever's been going on. So this guy knew, so he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son who was close to death.
Yeah.
And as a father, you and I are both fathers here.
We're not fathers.
Yeah, I was like, wait, you are his father. I was confused. We are both fathers.
We're both
like,
fathers.
wait, no, you're not his dad.
I'm not his dad.
He's your okay.
He's my dad, but we're both dads.
Got it.
And as this guy has a
Happy Father's Day coming up, by the way, guys.
Hey, thank you.
What'd you get us?
I'm not your
son.
son.
Later today? You could celebrate all dads, though. It's always good.
I'll give you permission to get something for me and for him
Okay.
too if you want for
Sounds
Father's
good.
Day. Like we don't have to be your dad for a gift to be appropriate. Just feel free.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We have something for you guys on Sunday. It's really special.
Oh yeah, we do. I got something for you.
Oh, that's
I got
great.
something for you.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to
Super
this
great.
guy. He's a desperate dad, right?
Yeah,
And,
I'm just sort of
and
thinking about
understandably so.
the emotions of a dad. If you have a son that's close to death, what are you doing?
You're doing anything possible, anything even remotely feasible. You're going to be desperate enough to travel a distance, to make whatever decision you have to do, seek out whoever you have to seek out. And the word around town was this Jesus doing these miracles and healing people. Like, that's the guy I need to go see. And so he does. And he's begging Jesus. And I think there's something very interesting there is that, which is often true in my experience, your experience as you're watching here, often our desperation drives us to Jesus. As I think back over the years of my ministry and the different people that have come to Christ, the vast majority of people who come to Christ that I know about or have been involved in them coming to Christ, and becoming his followers have come during a time of crisis. A health crisis, a marriage crisis, a personal identity crisis, some kind of difficult, challenging, or adverse circumstance kind of points out our need for something bigger than ourselves, for someone bigger than ourselves, for a relationship with our Creator. And so there's a built-in drive, and it's happening right here for this guy. It's like, now he's coming out of an awareness of his need for his son, right?
Yeah.
But what he doesn't realize yet, probably, is that he has a bigger need personally for a relationship with Jesus. But that's part of the journey, right? You discover as you go along more and more who Jesus is and who he wants to be in your life. At this point, he just wants Jesus to be the healer in his son's life and in their family life. Jesus is going to do that, but he's going to be so much more as well.
Yeah. He's looking for a miracle, and Jesus is trying to help him see the miracle worker.
Correct.
As he shows up. But as a father, like, he is desperate. I'd be desperate too. Like, you have a solution to this, potential death here. I would give my life for one of my kids. There's a very short list probably on earth of people that I would give my life for.
I don't think we make the list.
We don't quite make it.
Nope. I don't think so. No. I don't want to lie on video here. But, that's the beauty of Jesus, and like you talk about grace and mercy and God's love for all people, is he literally did die for every single person. It's not just for a select couple of people, his kids or whatever, but it is for every person. And somebody loves you if they would give their life for you. And so, like, the reality of evidence of God does love us. I've never seen God, but I've seen the evidence. I've seen that, through the recording of people's eyewitness testimonies, that Jesus did die. He did rise. And so, like, I'm going with the resurrected Jesus on that one because of his love for us.
Right.
Yeah, and so again, I think referencing what you said, that this guy comes out of his desperation and his need for something physical. And again, we've seen this already as a theme that John has brought up with the woman at the well and these different things where Jesus uses the water as living water, illustration, the bread as the bread of life. And then he's going to kind of answer this guy with this question that is kind of confusing. You might be like, well, Jesus, that's kind of rude, bro. Like, why do you got to why you got to be mean about it?
Really rude.
Like, will you never believe in me unless you see miraculous signs and wonders? Like, is that all you want from me? Like, we kind of read into this, like, well, what is Jesus doing there? Why does he respond there? And we see this response throughout the Gospels and some of the things that Jesus references is, woe to you, unbelieving generation type. Hey, you need these things, and you're desperate for this sign, or you're desperate for the thing, or you're desperate for the need that you have, which is right in front of you. And again, it's easy for us to understand where this man's at. We've all been there, regardless of
whether it's a kid or not.
We've had this need, or we're in desperation, and like Craig said, we reach out and we go, I don't know, I'll try this God thing. Maybe that's the thing that will help me. And a lot of times that's a genuine first step experience to see God and to experience God. I said that a couple weeks ago with, I know, my own life and my friends, like, I've tried everything else, nothing else works. Maybe this God thing will work out. And so Jesus' response there, I think, isn't a smack on the wrist. Maybe it is a little bit of a wake-up call, but also this response to who he truly is as more than just a need meter or a
well, do you think it's
worker.
just for this individual? Like, with Jesus' response, I think it's for everybody listening.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
It is for everybody.
I don't even know.
Nope.
I don't even know if it was literally for this guy. There was a crowd of people.
Yeah.
And the Galileans as a whole going, hey,
right.
y'all not really believing, and you need more miraculous signs? Like, come on.
Yeah, there's strong indication in a variety of places in Scripture that things that Jesus said and did, he did for the sake of the crowds. For example, when he raised Lazarus from the dead, he showed up and he started to pray, and he actually said to the Father, he said, Father, I know that you already heard me. We already talked about this, but for the sake of those that are listening, I'm saying it again.
Right.
I mean, he just spells it out, like, that's what's going on. I'm doing this for your benefit because I know you're listening. Yeah. And I think that's happening here as well.
Yeah. And I think one of the well, let me say this first, just for clarity of context. God wants to meet our needs. He does meet our needs. It's out of love. It's not a conditional thing. The spoiler alert, this guy's son doesn't die. He gets healed miraculously by Jesus. And he does that in our lives in so many different ways. And it's a lot of the times it's what drives us out of need. Like, okay, I got to fix this. I got to find a solution. Like, I don't have peace in my life. Where do I turn to? I don't have spiritual fulfillment. I don't have a satisfaction in my soul. I've tried fame and money and status, and that just leaves me empty. It's good for a season, and then it just like falls flat. so I'm going to come and try to find a solution. The problem is a lot of us and a lot of people just stay in that spot. Their faith is a crisis, desperation faith only. Like it never grows beyond. I came to Jesus out of need was met, boom, don't need my faith anymore. Yeah. Boom, I'm walking away. Oh, need in my life, relational crisis. I'm coming back to Jesus because that's the foundation of your faith. It's what brought you to Christ and opened your eyes for the need for Jesus, but then you've just stayed there. Like you haven't grown past a crisis-based faith as the foundation. And again, God meets all of our needs, even when we don't ask them. Like he sends the rain because we need it for our planet. Right. I didn't ask him for the rain the last 6 weeks. Yeah. He just kept giving it. Then I was like, we're good. We're good on the rain. Can we get some sunshine? I'm emotional vitamin D. I need that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that like where this guy is coming to Jesus in the desperation, but like a lot of us can get stuck in that mode where it's like the ups and downs where, oh yeah, life's going smooth right now. Like I don't need Jesus. Like, or we just start like going with what am I trying to say? Like we just go through the motions. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. We go through the motions of like just going through the rest of our day, but then we have that moment of desperation that kind of shocks us back. I mean, I've kind of found myself in that place throughout college for sure, just going throughout my days, being like, wow, I haven't read my Bible in whatever, like 2 weeks or something like that. Like, what am I doing right now? Yeah. But it's been in those desperate moments I was like, that we realize, well, I need to be following Jesus again, but then we find ourselves back in that other mode.
Yeah. Right. God's not a vending machine.
Yeah. Yeah. And this consumerism thing that Jesus speaks to that a lot. But again, there's this tension to be managed, like you say, Scott, because I mean, we understand that God is our provider and that he is there for us and he wants abundance and blessing and life and grace for us. But there's this point that Jesus speaks to a lot, and John's already referenced it too, in this consumerism, like it's the way in which we approach our relationship with Jesus. And Jesus is seeing throughout the point, he never didn't meet the need. Yeah. But often he spoke to the fact of like, it's much more than that. And I want to be a part of your life. I want to give you an abundance of life, but that comes through life with me, not just a vending machine or keeping me in your back pocket for when you need me. And that's all our relationship is. That's a shallow, superficial relationship with God. And Jesus is saying there's so much more to this that we can have. And I want you to experience that. And the blessing and abundance will flow from that.
Agreed. Scott, you touched on it earlier, and I think it was succinctly put that he's looking for the miracle, and Jesus is trying to help him discover the miracle worker. Yeah. And we often, I've heard it said this way, don't just seek what comes from his hand, seek his face. It's the same idea that it's not just what he can do for me, but it's who he is and who he wants to be in my life in terms of an actual, real, and ongoing relationship. I think there's another thing that Jesus is getting at here, and it really is fundamental to how faith works. The Christian life is a life of faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. He who comes to God must believe that he is and that he's a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. Romans chapter 1, Paul says, this is how the life is lived. It's lived by faith. Our whole relationship is based on faith, and faith works this way. It's I believe, and then the facts follow. And Jesus is pointing out the fact that for most people, the general tendency of human nature, including in my life, is I want the facts first, then I'll believe. Right? Show me the sign, show me the wonder, do the miracle, heal my son, and then I'll believe in you. And Jesus is saying, no, actually, faith works the other way. You don't actually
have a belief then. You just have facts.
Yeah, you just have facts, right? So faith actually, by definition, says, I believe without the facts, and I'm confident that in time, the things that I believe will become fact. Jesus will come again. There is an eternity. I'm going to spend it with him in heaven, etc.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the kind of, aha moments or kind of the culmination of the story for me. In a lot of the stories where Jesus healed something or did something amazing is his response to the guy. So after verse 49, he pleads with him, Lord, please come to my house. Come put your hands on him. Make it happen. Do the thing that you do. I don't know how you do it. You did the water to wine thing. I saw the sleight of hand magic trick thing you did. Can you do that again? Can you come and...
Well, and he probably had gotten the word out, like he'd healed other really sick people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's not even like trying to transfer a faith from like you did water to wine, so you could probably do like child that's ill to like healthy child. There have probably been other times before this that, oh, I heard Jesus like healed someone who was almost dead.
Well, do that.
Do that for my son.
And then, so he pleads, come now before my little boy dies. And then verse 50, Jesus says, go back home and your son will live. It will happen. I will make it happen. And then the second part of that verse, and the man believed what Jesus said and started home. And there's all of these times where that faith comes in, and Jesus says things, it's your faith that has made you well. It's your faith that has healed you. So this faith is kind of that culmination of not only did you believe that coming to me would work, that you believed that what I said would happen.
Right.
And that's the faith. Like when we choose to trust that Jesus, you are who you say you are, and you will do what you say you will do. Jesus says you've got the point. That's where it is. That's where the culmination, the everything is right there, in that faith coming into action. And then the man does it. He acts on it, right? He says, okay, I'm going to go home because you said I will, and that's the faith in action there.
Yeah.
And then the detail that is the detail that is explained for us in verses 51 and following. It says, so as he was going down, his slaves met him, saying, hey, your son's actually alive. And so he said, well, tell me, so what time was it when he began to get better? And they said, well, it was yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. Oh. And the father put 2 and 2 together and realized that's exactly the time when I was having that conversation with Jesus, and he said, your son lives. And I believe that, and headed on back home to...
Because look, he's trying to put those facts together.
He is.
To grow his faith. He goes, wait.
Yep.
Because what is he thinking about when he's walking?
I hope it's true.
I hope it's true. Like, I would be sweating bullets.
Yep.
I would be like, I think it's true. I really want it to be true.
I'm afraid it won't
but
be.
I just left the guy who could make it true, and the only one who could.
Yep.
Like, he's not with me. So, you know what I mean? You're walking for hours by yourself, thinking, having this reflection time. Like the guy that could do it is back there. He said he was going to do it, and I believe him. But this guy who had, believed him at his word still was a human.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then he's putting that fact together going,
and
at
then,
the exact hour? Oh, that's because that was Jesus.
And when he does that, it says in verse 53 at the latter part of the verse says, and he himself believed and his whole household.
Right.
So note the journey here. So he's got enough faith to have heard some things about Jesus, and he has enough faith to think that just might happen for him, more importantly for his son. And so he goes to Jesus. That's faith in action. It's like, I got a little bit of faith that it might actually be true, and you might actually be able to pull it off for my son. Then Jesus says, your son lives, and it says, and he believed him, believed the word that Jesus spoke to him, and started off. That's verse 50. And then when he connected the dots, he believed even more. So this is a growing faith. There's a little faith in coming to Jesus, a little more faith at the word of Jesus about his son, and then when he sees the results, the faith grows even more still.
Right.
That's how it works in all of our lives. It's a process of faith that is growing as we walk with him.
Yeah, and as Americans, I think it's harder as humans, but as Americans, we like to use the scientific method. We like to have a ton of facts. We all have Googleable phones, and we can research everything.
It's ungoogleable.
It's ungoogleable. And so
Is
we
that
like
a
to
word?
explain and know everything and be able to scientifically explain everything away. And so I think there is a harder barrier for us to help people find and follow Jesus, is because this faith leap seems even larger than other cultures where there's more of a spiritual culture. There's more of a mystery and a divine kind of, culture going on as a people group. As Americans, we're like, okay, prove it. Show me the facts. Let's fact check that.
Yep.
Oh, you posted it on Facebook?
Yeah.
Picture
Here,
didn't happen.
every 17 comments of I saw this article and that. And coming to a place where there's a certain point where you've used your mind and you've used your reason, but if you're able to reason out God, then the God is smaller than you because you understand and comprehend everything of God. We can't understand and comprehend everything of God. I just think, watch the sunset tonight and then say there's not a creator.
Exactly.
We try that in science where we're here's the smallest atomic level thing. Right? And I'm not even smart enough to talk enough and there's
There's the math minor.
I like
there's
quantum
the mic,
physics.
That's not gonna
the
do
quantum physics.
Yeah.
And then they're like,
Physics.
isn't it like the quark? And then they're like, oh, you know what's even smaller than that? We didn't even know existed a few years ago. It's called a quark.
Yeah.
Really? I just think
I'm lost. Are you lost?
I'm
I don't know. Where
lost.
he's at.
people
I never
here's the
took,
smallest
chemistry or
particle
anything
that
like
we
that.
can see, and then
Oh,
they
okay.
found out there's even a smaller one. I think if we're able to find out the quark is the small or whatever, right? Somebody probably could comment. The quark, and then they would realize, oh, there's something even smaller. It's because you're trying to find God. God's going, oh, yeah, there's
Yeah.
more, and there's more. You'll never find the end of the
Now,
universe.
here's a little known fact. Quark is also a character on Star Trek. He was a Ferengian, but, you Star Trek fans know what I'm talking about.
Man.
I just took a left turn on you guys right here.
Jesus.
Hey,
No,
pray for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pray for me. That's my legacy. That's
boy.
what's been passed down.
I heard you tell Ben the other day that the further you get in life, the more you're gonna be like that. So.
Exactly.
It's hard.
So,
It's part of your future.
It's
Just,
hard.
Fight
The
it.
genes
just
are
lean
up.
into
Fight
it, Scott. Lean into
Fight
it.
it.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that.
Oh, my gosh. All right. So,
The-
yeah, back to this guy's journey of
Jesus.
faith.
Yeah. One thing that when I was reading through the story, I really thought of, I think it's something that I think my generation.
I think your
You're
mic's
breaking up
cutting out.
there.
Hold up top. Hold it like this.
Hello?
Is it
Hello?
still going?
Sorry, my hands get really sweaty. Maybe it's
The-
like interfering.
This is the
with
antenna down here.
Am I
so
good?
Yeah,
you
you're
might
good
be
now.
blocking
Cool.
it. All right.
I think it's something specifically that more my generation struggles with, but I think everyone struggles with it here now. But letting kind of like our emotions guide our thoughts or decisions about who Jesus is, like you were saying, like we're called to take Jesus at his word. When Jesus says that he's going to be with us always, like to the very end of the age. For some reason, my generation, and people in general, we like to let our feelings kind of guide our thoughts. Say like, oh, I feel really far away from God. Like I don't feel close at all, or I feel like God's left me. But like that's not, like when we feel that those aren't true at all. Like Jesus said that he's going to be with us, and we're called to be taking Jesus at his word when he says like, I'm going to be with you always. I'm going to love you. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to support you and hold you up, and I'm going to give you life. I think it really speaks to that we're not called to let our feelings and emotions kind of guide our thoughts about who Jesus is or about his promises. We're supposed to take Jesus at his word and trust him, have faith in him.
Yeah.
It's good.
One of the most helpful things I heard a few years ago is this, that not everything that is real will I feel, and not everything that I feel is real.
Gotta feel, or you gotta
It
deal
always-
with how
you
you
gotta deal
feel.
with how you feel. Kids are talking about that. Mission kids.
Yeah,
we
but
talk
not
about that here?
everything that I feel is actually real.
I think so.
Mhm.
And not everything that's real am I able to feel.
And then understanding,
And
because I
that's hard
agree with Tanner in understanding this not even just like what I feel about God, but what I feel is right and what I feel is healthy and what I right. We see that a lot in culture. Like, oh, well, it's true for you, and I feel differently. So
Your truth and my
yeah,
truth.
and so I feel
somehow-
differently, and I get that, and we do have feelings, we do have emotions, and they're from God. But when I look to who God is, and again, you talk about the creator and sustainer of the universe and my Savior who died, God's facts will always trump the way I feel. Like there's some facts that I know about God, and I put my faith in them, and like I feel that this is right for me to do this. Well, it doesn't make it right.
Right.
Specifically if it's different than what God said about what is and isn't. And so I think that there's a danger there in this idea of how we feel and letting that, run our lives rather than looking to God and asking God for help. Because again, like this man, he went to Jesus for the advice and the insight. And when we do that and follow that direction, and I think it's Proverbs that says we sing songs like, listen to your heart. Just do what your heart says. Do what you feel. And like Proverbs says, no, your heart is wicked. And if you follow your heart, you're in trouble. Like that's the most wicked thing. So like, don't listen to your heart. Don't do that. That's bad advice. Like follow God and check your feelings with who he is and what he would say, because then you'll find success and health and beneficial things.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't feel like gravity is affecting me today. Like it might affect you, and I'm going to step off this cliff because gravity.
I just
is
don't
not-
feel like gravity
gravity's
is a
gonna
real
go
thing.
away.
Try that.
for-
I'm just going to go with my feeling that I don't really feel
Yeah.
like gravity is pulling me down today.
Yep. Good luck with
Don't
that. by
let
the way.
gravity hold you down, Scott. You
Don't-
fly
have
free.
fun.
Yeah,
Listen to your heart.
But it is tricky too to have that tension of like, but we are emotional beings, and it's okay to
Absolutely.
have our emotions and
Yeah.
live
created
from
that
them.
way by God.
Yeah, exactly. And we've talked about Jesus' emotions, right? He got
Yep.
angry, had a righteous anger, and so live with passion and live with. But it is tricky when you're like, well, what is really true? What am I going to make decisions on in my life? Is it going to be primarily my emotion of like, is this true or not? With Jesus, there you go, yawning again. When I chat,
I
know
tried. I'm
it's
so
okay.
hard.
I'm getting a calloused heart about it, but
Wednesday nights are late nights for
They are
me.
late nights.
we've heard all the excuses. We all know it's fine. Just say it, Scott.
I'm sorry, Scott. You were boring me.
The teacher on peanuts. Wah, 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 wah. It's this snallergies I got. Anyways, I wanted to, maybe we've read this before. I always like to read it again. Mission Kids Monday, like 2 weeks ago. But it was, like your Tanner, you're talking about, like, I just don't know if I feel. We have this Jesus who said, I'm God. I love you. I came to be with you. You have a sin issue. I'm the only one that can reconcile it because he's the Son of God and the Son of Man. He's like on both sides because he's fully God, fully man. He reconciles us, takes care of sin and death on the cross, and then he rises from the dead. Again, back to their faith, like, I'm not sure if that happened. It happened, and then they were witness to it. Hundreds of people witness to it. And then when we screw up in life today in 2020, you're like, I think God's still upset with me.
Yeah.
Like, I think he still condemns me for it. I don't know if I could be forgiven for that thing or that situation. And
Because I feel like he left me, or I feel like he's distant, or
John, the writer that we're reading, he also wrote letters. And in 1 John, his first letter, he said this, chapter 3, verse 19. This then is how we know that we belong to the truth, and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence whenever our hearts condemn us. He's talking about, the love that God has for us. For God is greater than our hearts or our feelings, and he knows everything.
Well
Good.
said.
Do you know the song?
No, but sing it. Go.
God is greater than my feelings. He knows everything. He knows everything.
Wow.
Mission Kids Monday for you right
Awesome.
there. Yeah.
Nice.
Love
It's a
it.
great song. It's real catchy.
It is real
It'll
catchy.
get in your head.
Good.
Tune
It's
in.
true.
I don't know if we'll do it as part of Mission Kids Monday tomorrow, but watch. If you're on YouTube right now, go scroll through some of those channels.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun.
That's great.
It's poppy. It's catchy. It'll get in your head all
Probably
week.
better than what you just did.
Way better than what I just did. Way better. So, but yeah.
Anyways.
So we've got a few minutes left. Let's jump into chapter 5, shall we?
I think let's pause, wrap it up. We'll jump into this one next week.
That's like a can of worms. You just want to open them, go.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Just leave the worms out on the table, let them wiggle around and
I don't
crawl
know if that's
around
a
for a
good
week.
idea.
you know?
Let's dive in next week. I think we're on a good spot talking about faith. Anybody else have a
Okay.
wrap up thought on faith here? We could do that, but I think chapter 5, this whole nother
thing.
situation about people looking for miracles,
Oh,
looking for
boy.
signs and wonders.
It's
Again,
an
if you
interesting
find
one.
yourself in a spot where you're like, maybe that's me, maybe my faith is more based on like the miracles. Like Jesus has put his spirit inside of us as his followers, which that's a miracle in and of itself. And you just stick with the miracle worker and be with him as the foundation, then everything else like follows. Like he takes care of us and our needs and miracles and does stuff. And if you're just always looking for the vending machine God, like, okay, produce. If I have this equation in my head where I have this spiritual equation, if I do X, Y, and Z spiritual things, then he produces this. What kind of relationship is that?
Yeah, and
That's
then
like
the other
totally
thing I
manipulative
love
relationship.
about the context of this, of all of these stories really, is Jesus' mission with people to not just do a thing or provide a need, but to gather people who are on mission with him. Right? Like again, I hear you say that, and I think a lot of times, specifically in our culture today, in our world, we go, I'm going to come to this place or do this thing because I need something. I got to get filled up for this week. And Jesus is like, there's a part for that, but I want people who are on mission with me. I want to do something amazing in this world. So I don't want just guys coming and going, hey, heal my son or make this water into wine, and then peacing out. I'm gathering disciples who are going to change the world.
Right.
I'm empowering people to do some amazing things. I want to heal people so that they can heal other people. I want to love people so that when they get the love of God inside them, they love other people well, and they change their neighborhoods and their cities and their workplaces and their environments. And that's what faith will do. It's faith that moves mountains. And Jesus he's getting this, starts with ragtag people, and then these people who are, that's why he speaks to the whole crowd here.
Yeah.
Because he goes, hey, all of you, listen, I don't want you just here just to get something. I want to do something with you. I want you. I'm not going to be here forever. And when I leave, I want you to change the world. And you can, because I'll be with you. And I think for us as Christ followers, or for us who are even questioning that, going, man, there's so much more that Jesus wants to do in us and through us. And that's the beautiful picture when we get on mission with Jesus.
Yep.
And Jesus is all about life. We talked about that earlier, and this is just another example where Jesus is about spiritual life as well as physical life, taking care of this guy's son, meeting a real practical need, saying your son will live. We have no idea, who that was and how he lived his life and, what he did in his life, but they became believers in Jesus, so they had a spiritual life, that an eternal life, a reborn moment like we've talked about. And Jesus came to give us life, and life to the fullest. And eternal life starts the moment we say yes to Christ. And this is just another one of those examples, like that the character of God is evident.
Yep.
And God has not changed. He's always been about life. He's the creator of life. Like he's this idea of you and me and Tanner and Craig, like he decided like humans, that would be a good thing. He created life, breathed into Adam. He's always been about life. If you ever hear about Jesus that is not about life, that's the wrong Jesus. Like, he's always about life and life eternally. So, well, let's. Do you have any other thoughts? I feel like you really wanted to go to 5, and I pump the brakes, and then.
Hey, it's not the first time you pump the brakes on something I came up with.
Okay.
Yep, that's
well,
fine.
All righty. Sounds good. Well, Tanner, thanks for being with us today. Tanner's more, now that you're not a college student,
Not a college
you're
student.
a working professional.
Yeah,
You'll probably be on Theology Thursdays more
Yeah, a
with
little bit
us
more,
and
yeah.
mixing it up in a summer schedule here with people on vacations or whatever. In and out, it'll be different voices, which will be good. But thanks for tuning in, checking out Theology Thursday. Next time we're together, we'll be chapter 5 and this healing at the pool. Have a great week. Keep following Jesus.
Thanks for joining us.